welcome to this week's edition of News Update. My name is Marina Brunelle and I am your host. On tonight's program, we will be discussing Cameco's current dispute with the CRA. The dispute, which first started in 2008, concerns transfer pricing. With an approximate $2.2 billion in estimated taxes at stake, the court hearing that started in October of last year is shaping up to be a landmark transfer pricing case. Transfer pricing, if you recall from last week's program, occurs when companies have different subsidiaries and transfer assets at predetermined prices among them. This is a common practice for large corporations with more aggressive tax planning strategies. As will be discussed later in the program, there is usually no problem in creating a foreign subsidiary and transacting at arm's length. However, in this case, the tax authorities are not in agreement. On tonight's program, I will start off by giving some background information on Cameco and introduce the dispute. Formed in 1988, Cameco Corporation is one of the world's largest uranium producers. In 1999, Cameco Corporation restructured their business by creating a European subsidiary in Switzerland called Cameco Europe Limited, referred to as Swissco. With the restructuring, the Canadian parent company made an agreement to supply Swissco with uranium for the next 17 years at $10 US per pound. The price was comparable to the market price for uranium at the time. It's noteworthy to mention that the Swiss corporate tax rate was a low 10% compared to the Canadian rate of 27%. Cameco's dispute with the CRA started back in 2008 when their Canadian earnings were reassessed for the years 2003 until 2006. The reassessment was triggered as the Crown disagreed with the structuring of Cameco Group, stating that they should be transacting at arm's length. Furthermore, the Crown believes that Swissco was created solely for the purpose of evading taxes and that it had no real business activity. To make matters worse for Cameco, the soaring market prices for uranium for the years in dispute disagreed with the sale price of the uranium determined in the original agreement. Tonight we have some special guests that will shed some light on the current situation. First we have Yana that will talk about the CRA's position and their defense. Following Yana we have Grant that will defend Cameco's position. Finally, my co-host Jane will end the program by informing us on the latest developments on the case and highlighting some opinions from different analysts and critics. Now I introduce to you our first guest, Yana. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I will present you the Canada Revenue Agency's point of view in this landmark case. It's consistent with Canadian transfer pricing rules. Usually, tax authorities test two things: the corporate structure of entities involved in transaction and the selling price. To optimize organizational structure, companies can establish foreign subsidiaries to manage their businesses. There is nothing wrong with such an arrangement, but the general rule is that such subsidiaries cannot be set up purely as a tax dodge, a tax shelter. All foreign units should fulfill genuine business function. And considering Cameco's corporate structure, CRA asserts that Swiss company had no real business activity. In substance, it existed only on paper. Cameco performed virtually all operating functions for its subsidiary. In fact, intercompany arrangements were created to pretend that Swissco conducted the business and incurred the risks. There wasn't any bona fide non-tax business purposes to establish Swiss subsidiary. So, under the sham doctrine, the income reported in Canada should be reassessed. It should include income reported in Switzerland. And what about the selling price? Well, there is a world market price for uranium, but the Cameco cooked up artificially low cost with its subsidiary. As a result, the corporation has been understated its Canadian taxable income by $7.4 billion. In the late 90s, the companies entered into agreement of selling uranium, and they set up selling price as $10 a pound. However, a few years later, after the contract was signed, the prevailing price in the market rose over $130 a pound, and over the next decade it has been fluctuating between $25 and $75. But Cameco has been paying just $10. No unrelated company would have made that kind of a deal with fixed pricing for 17 years. So those sales should be recharacterized as non-arm's length transactions. And income reported in Canada should be restated based on fair market price of uranium. If transfer pricing adjustment is made, a 10% penalties can be imposed, and they are not tax deductible. CRA is quite confident it will win the case in the tax court, and the Crown will recover all unpaid taxes.
Hi, I'm Grant Whitham. I'm representative of Cameco. I'll be talking about our defense. There have been several claims by the CRA that our organization was using our Swiss company, Swissco, solely as a method by using transfer pricing to reduce income taxes, and that there were no business on our part, that this legal agreement was only on paper to look good. I asked, what proof does the CRA have against Cameco? What do they have to substantiate their claims? Today's world, technology is rapidly changing. Companies are now part of a global market. Organizations are using social media as advertising. They engage in international transactions. Business items can be easily tracked with virtual methods, such as email notifications or notifications to one's cell phone. The fact that Cameco engages in transfer pricing is not uncommon. Many companies today have subsidiaries set up abroad to deal with global trade. Companies such as Google profit split and change for intellectual property. Starbucks does the same thing, claiming it as a cost for using their trademark. So I ask you, how can you go after this Saskatoon-based company when other organizations across the globe are doing the same thing? The claim of the sham doctrine is outrageous. She claims that there was no transaction between the two companies, that our Swiss company never sold any of Cameco's product, uranium, when we had complied with the conditions set forth in the Canadian Income Tax Act. She wants to hold an investigation further into our financial records. I have no doubt that we will provide the financial records of the transaction, and we will give full disclosure of Cameco Europe Limited's financial statements as bona fide proof that we did indeed, in fact, sell uranium and claimed it part of our revenue. In the defense of our company, Cameco, this transaction was an arm's length transaction. The intercompany agreement with Swissco was consistent with our other suppliers, and that the comparable, uncontrolled pricing method should be followed. We conducted a trading business with Swissco. Uranium was purchased from us at a market risk for Swissco, as they had financial losses for the first 5 years. Swissco hired the Canadian parent to advise them on their financial issues, and this was a part of the business. As our Cameco spokesperson, Gord Struthers, quotes, "The business structure has made sense, and we have done nothing wrong. What you're doing to us is going to cripple us. $2.1 billion. Seriously."
Well, Canada Revenue Agencies has continued to receive additional funding for the audit of international transactions, and it often focuses its audit on transfer pricing. The likelihood that large corporations like you, like Cameco, will have annual tax audit is high, and if transfer pricing comes under auditing, the likelihood that transfer pricing methodology is being challenged is also very high. To assist taxpayers in resolving transfer pricing disputes that may arise, CRA offers Transfer Pricing Arrangement Program, APA, and it helps to provide mutually agreeable solutions to complex transfer pricing issues that are consistent with the Income Tax Act.
As of 2017, 3 tax years are currently being tried in court, 2003, 5, and 6, with Cameco being liable for $2.1 billion taxes. This could rise if penalties and interest payments are imposed. To date, Cameco has paid $264 million in cash and provided $340 million in letters of credit. The current trial started on October 3rd, 2016, and is expected to last until March 2017, in which a decision will be rendered in 6 to 18 months afterwards. Now I will talk about the analyst's perspective on this case. Since transfer pricing involves hypotheticals, it's not uncommon for companies and tax authorities
to reach different conclusions about the value of goods shifted internally. Litigation typically stems from this uncertainty. So the amount of time between transaction and dispute must also be taken into consideration, because what seemed reasonable 5 years ago, now in hindsight, may not seem reasonable at all. This is especially relevant given the economic growth these uranium prices have encountered over the decade. Cameco's case is big by Canadian standards, but comparatively normal when compared to other multinational corporations locked in similar disputes, and it's not at all clear what the court will decide. The public should thus wait to hold off jumping to any conclusions before this trial is completed. Just because the dollar value is large does not mean that there was any malfeasance or any wrongdoing. From the public's point of view, many believe Cameco should abandon its appeal and simply pay back the taxes that the CRA says it owes. Sometimes transfer pricing is perfectly legitimate when multinationals sell between subsidiaries, but more and more multinationals have been abusing the law. For example, Apple, which is based in Ireland, is now facing a major US tax bill, but Apple actually sold its products in European countries and has thousands of employees in Ireland, while Swissco had neither full-time employees nor offices in Switzerland. All substantive work, such as mining, sales, and revenue, were generated in Canada, while risks were also incurred in Canada. They see this as the legalized theft of government services, since Cameco started off as a public mining company and its technology was developed in Canada with Saskatchewan government subsidization. The Canadian transportation infrastructure allowed the uranium to reach the market, enjoy a decade of development in a stable economy with low inflation, cheap capital, low crime, and the legal protection provided to a corporate citizen under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Cameco's employees received free or subsidized education and government-provided health insurance, as opposed to employees in similar companies in the US. In addition, the federal taxes Cameco is avoiding are amongst the lowest in the world, 15% compared to, for example, 35% in the US. The public maintains that the CRA should refuse to negotiate and revise subsequent tax laws regarding transfer pricing. Meanwhile, on Cameco's end, it maintains that its foreign subsidiaries are legitimate and its transfer price for uranium was set at realistic levels and offshore structures permitted by Canada's income tax laws. They're confident that their balance sheet will be able to manage all possible outcomes of the dispute, and they will continue to appeal. Interestingly, the Saskatchewan government has stayed mostly quiet from condemning Cameco, perhaps because it is such an integral player in the Canadian nuclear power sector and economy. Because of all these economic and legal factors, future projections for investments in Cameco remain mostly negative. Current dividends are paid at 10 cents per quarter, and trading prices are down 44% from 2012.
And that's it for tonight's program. But we want your opinion.